Welcome to Killer Women with your host, best-selling author Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Hello, and welcome to Killer Women Podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air global network with more than 4 million listeners. I'm your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and I am speaking to you today from Mexico, not Montana, which is fabulous. And my guest is Linda Hurtado Bond. Linda is an Emmy-award-winning journalist. She works as a television news reporter and anchor in Tampa, Florida. For the past 20 years, she's been reporting on local and national events, as well as writing emotional human interest stories on both the best and worst in our society. She's seen it all, and her unique vantage point provides endless content for her fiction. Linda is also the host of Tampa Bay Reads, an author-related segment that airs on her TV news station, highlighting local book influencers, authors, and others in the book community. A breast cancer survivor, Linda took the worst day of her life and turned it into one of life's best opportunities, now using her platform as a news anchor to support nonprofits like the American Cancer Society and to advocate for others fighting cancer. She has won 13 Emmy Awards, numerous Society of Professional Journalists and Associated Press awards, as well as a Florida Bar and an Edward R. Murrow Award. Woo! Welcome, Linda.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to be here. I'm looking at your beautiful trees, palm trees behind you, and I'm stuck in an audio booth
But at least you're in Florida. We know you're not.
Yes.
There's no snow waiting for you outside. So you're very lucky. Well, I wanted to show us. I'm down since I'm down in Mexico. Of course, I don't have the physical copy of the book, but this is the latest cover of Linda's new book, All the Captive Girls. So, Linda, this is a series, it sounds like, and this is the first book I have read of the series. I love that you can pick it up in the middle, but tell us about Mari, about Tony, about this world.
Well, thank you so much. So my editor and my publisher actually came to me because I started writing romantic suspense, more romance, and asked me if I could write a serial killer series, a 3-book series. And I thought, well, I guess I could. I'm a crime reporter, or used to be a crime reporter in real life, so deal with the crime scene a lot and a crime beat. So I made Mari Alvarez kind of a lot like the reporters that I know and work with. So she's not necessarily me. She's kind of a combination of people that I work with. And I also wanted to highlight the Cuban-American community in Tampa. So she is a Cuban American, and the homicide detective she bumps into at a crime scene when the series starts is also Cuban American and grew up in West Tampa. And some cultural things are very important in that first book. It's how she solves the crime and how she figures out who the serial killer is. And she has a sidekick, Orlando, who's her photographer. So really the three of them go on this long adventure that takes them from West Tampa to Cuba, and then finally back to Tampa for book 3. And I've always wanted to set a book during Gasparilla. Are you familiar with Gasparilla?
No, but it's happening kind of right now, right?
It's happening right now in Tampa.
So tell people what that is, because I had never heard of it. And then I saw it in the news and thought, oh my God, I'm reading this book at the perfect time. So yes.
So it's started out as just like a parade of pirates, based on the legend of Jose Gaspar, a fictional pirate that sailed off the coast of Florida, right? And it's turned into like 3 months, a 3 months excuse to party. Like there's 3 parades. There's a children's parade, a day parade, a night parade, which is this weekend. I'm actually in the parade this weekend. And there's a music festival and a film festival. And so it's 3 months of celebrations here in Tampa. Very cinematic because everybody dresses up either as pirates or knights or queens or princesses or wenches. And I just thought, what a perfect background for a killer to hide in plain sight. If there was something to happen at a parade and you turned around and looked for the bad guy, they all look like bad guys. They're all dressed like pirates with scar makeup on and hats on. And so that was my idea. And then I also wanted to explore artificial intelligence, which is really affecting my job as a television news reporter right now. So that's also a thread that's woven through All the Captive Girls.
I learned, that was amazing. The things that, and we don't do spoilers on Killer Women, but there is some manipulation of film that puts Mari in a very awkward position several times during the book. And I mean, I kind of was like, please tell me this isn't real. But I imagine that the research you've done is that it is. This is what's coming. This is what's happening.
It's
Or what's
happening
they're
now.
capable of. Yeah.
Right. So as a reporter, it's old school of me to like make sure that whatever's in my fiction is at least plausible, and I interview people, right? So I interviewed cybersecurity, police folks, like those that knew the cutting edge of what AI is being used by criminals to do, what it's being used by law enforcement to do, what it's being used by the media. So everything in that book is capable of happening now. Some of it you'd have to be pretty good with artificial intelligence, like the deep fake videos. But if you just go on X right now, sometimes I know you look at videos and you question whether they're real or not, right? And
right. Well,
some are and some aren't.
Yeah, there's like the video of like all the famous, there's like it's like Brad Pitt and George Clooney, and they're like, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is not part of a movie I've seen, and I do know that is not real, and it is. Yeah, it's terrifying and unbelievable. And the way that you use in the book is, first of all, I learned so much. I love when I learn so much from a book without realizing how much I'm learning. I know that's,
thank you.
And that's of course your skill as an investigative reporter and a news anchor is to make tell us things in a way that is, like you're chatting with your good friend, and that I appreciate that so much too.
Still has to be entertaining, right? I mean, you still have to, people still have to want to turn the page. So
yes. Even that more now than ever, right? Because our attention spans are so short, and I imagine, and that has also completely changed the way the news has been happening. And you've been in it long enough to see a lot of change. So, so you have you have 4 children, all of them are incredibly successful. I read that; this is fabulous. You have a full life as an anchor. What in the world prompted you to be like, well, I think I'll just add another career on top of everything else?
Why did I become a writer? I'll answer that in a second. I just want to share, if I can,
yes,
one like proud mommy moment. So one of my daughters is a pilot, and today she's trained on simulators, right? She's flown small planes, but not a jet. She's been training on simulators. So this morning I got to listen to her talk to the tower at LaGuardia and take off. And she's flew to Pensacola, Florida, landed, and now she's about to take off and go back to LaGuardia. It's her first day as a first officer in a jet. And so I'm tracking her on flight radar, as any good helicopter mom would do.
I mean, especially at this moment. We've had a few things that have happened in the air.
So, oh my gosh. And we were watching that together like the week before she flies for the first time. And I felt so horrible for the families, horrible for the aviation community in general, and horrible for all of us who have to continue to fly because it's just, there's no other way to get from point A to point B sometimes. But she tells me she's studied the safety of airlines. That's her minor. And she said it's very rare tragedy when it happens, but it's still safer to fly than it is to drive. So
right, and we know that, but for some reason it seems so much more terrifying to be in the air than, and of course we're much more likely to get harmed behind that wheel of our own car. So, but congratulations, that's super exciting.
Thank you.
Wow.
It was fun today. I got to say, it was fun. So why did I become a writer? I think you know this too. It's like, if you're really a writer, you write. Like, you just write, and you can try to quit because you're not making enough money, or you can try to quit because your children are saying you're not spending enough time with them, or you can try to quit because your husband wants more of your attention. He's like, stop writing about romance and come have some, like all of those things. So you quit and you focus on these other things, and then something pops into your head and you're back at the computer and you're writing. So I would be writing whether or not I ever sold a book. I'm a writer, and that's my day job too. So a storyteller, I guess I should say. I tell stories, and there's no way to stop. That's how I tell people.
And I kind of think that's, I mean, if that's true, that is sort of what you have to be to make it in this business. I feel like if you're somebody who could walk away from it, then I highly recommend you walk away from it, because like you said, it's a super hard job. It doesn't pay well. I mean, I'm like entering revision number 7 for the book that's going to be out next year. And I mean, if you didn't love it, if you didn't sort of have to do it, if it wasn't in your blood, then it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So, so you've been doing this a long time. When did your first book come out?
Gosh, about 10 years ago. And And, I found both my publisher, my agent at these writers' conferences that you and I go to. It was Romance Writers of America back in the day. Now I attend Thriller Fest because I'm a thriller writer. I've been pulled over to the dark side to the
Exactly.
thriller writers. But yes, so it came out about 10 years ago, and I met the editor there at one of these writers' conferences. So I sold my first book without even having an agent, and lucky that way, and wrote 3 books in the romantic suspense category, and then this will be my 3rd book in the thriller, so 6 books altogether. And I am about to take a hard right turn again. I've written 3 books about serial killers, and I know we had these 3 hurricanes that hit Florida last year, so it touched my heart in a deeply personal way. My mother-in-law lost her house. Some of my friends lost their house. It was just, and I had to work through all 3 of them. So I got to see everybody's devastation.
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to switch now to write more of like a Michael Crichton action adventure type. Like it's Twister, but it's a hurricane. So that's kind of what I'm working on next. And so that'll be probably another 3 books in a different series.
Yeah.
So I'm changing it up a little bit. So I've been writing for 10 years. And just, I love the fact that you can switch it up and still fall under kind of that thriller umbrella, but change it a little bit so it remains exciting and new to you as an author as well.
Well, it's funny. So my first book came out in 2000, and they wanted me to write romantic suspense, but I didn't have the romance part of that equation. But once you sort of once you sort of picked a lane, you were kind of expected to stay in your lane.
Right.
And I'm amazed. I love the fact that, there are authors out there who write a YA and then a thriller. And then, so I do feel like because readers want great stories. And if the author is telling a story that she believes or he believes is wonderful, then, the readers feel that. So I think now it's about, the cover copy can tell us plenty. Like you're picking up the book about the hurricanes, you're not getting a romance, or not only a romance, right? You better expect to get wet. So it's so I kind of love that we can do that, and I love that everybody's more open to that. And I actually also started with Romance Writers of America, although I never ended up writing the romance, but that was the first. I had friends who wrote romances, and it was such a welcoming community. They were so amazing with education about writing and about publishing. And so I've been, and the conferences are hilarious. I mean, those men, I don't know why we don't have topless
at Thriller Fest. I know. Come on, we should add that workshop.
Yeah, I'm sure that would be hilarious.
How to be a romance cover model.
Exactly. Right. And then they can pretend to get killed, and that'll be the end of the story. But no, I do love it. And I do think for aspiring writers going to those conferences, I know we have a lot of aspiring writers who listen to the podcast because, of course, this is where we hear about how it all goes and how it works. And I of course recommend to anybody who can get to a conference, join Sisters in Crime, join Mr. Writers of America, Romance Writers of America. There's so many great places. So you were writing. So how does a day in the life of Linda work? Obviously, you have what days are you on the air, and then how do you sort of fit writing in? Your children, it sounds like, are grown, but you were doing this, I suspect, when you had some who were still at home. So
yes, I would write on the soccer field, on the sidelines of the soccer field. I'd always tell my kids, because they were athletes, like, okay, you guys warm up for an hour. I don't need to watch an hour warm up. So I'm going to sit here and write for an hour. And then when the game starts, I'm going to close my laptop and I'm fully present and I'm there. Right. So they kind of knew that it's always a struggle. It really is. It's now that they're adults and they're out of the house, it's become easier. But now my husband, I'm his best friend and his playmate. So, he gets bored when I'm writing too much too. So you just have to kind of figure out the hours. But a typical day for me is I do the noon news. So I usually come in, if I have any doctor's appointments or anything, I'll do them in the morning. I come in about 10:30 to my TV station, prepare for the noon, and then I have a break until the 4:00 news. I do the 4 and the 5:00 news. So I'm live on the air 3 hours every day, Monday through Friday. But I'm talking to you right now, it's 2:00. So we'll be done by 3. So it's plenty of time to kind of just fit something in. And then at night I'll go home and write, or I sometimes I'll go to events, work-related events. But what I've found that helps me now, which is kind of what you're doing, is if I'm a plotter, so I'll take a lot of time to plot. I'll write a 12, 15-page outline, changes sometimes, but at least I go into these thrillers knowing the beginning, the middle, the end. And then if I can hardcore write, like for a couple weeks, and then even if I have to take time off from work and I get, 5 days in a row, that helps a lot, because then you don't
Right.
ever slip out of character, and you know exactly where you're going. And so now I'm realizing that these pieces of time, an hour here, an hour there, it really isn't enough. You just
Right.
got to dive in for a couple of weeks and get that ugly, rough draft out. And the magic comes later, but you got to get the rough draft out, and so that's kind of what my writing is now. I'll tell my husband, we have a boat, and because we live in Florida, and that's what we love to do together. So I'll say to him Saturday morning, when are the winds good? When are we going out on the boat? And I will write around that. So if it's
Yeah.
good at noon, and I'll write till noon. If it's good at 2, I'm going to write till 2. So we've just kind of found a balance where between work and play, because you
Mhm.
can't just always work. You need to play, because
No.
that's what
Right.
gives you inspiration too.
You got to fill the well. Well, it is interesting.
Mhm.
I agree with you. I think a lot of us wrote our first books in these bits and pieces. I mean, and I think it worked, but I think with the luxury of more time and when you know more about your own process. I mean, I think some
Right.
people still they get up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and they write for 2 or 3 hours and then they go to work and do their whole thing and do it all again. And I do think there's something really valuable about being in a book every day.
Hmm.
But I think it's just really hard to achieve in real life.
Yes. Definitely when you
So,
have a day job, still it is. And
yes,
certainly if you have children, because, they come first,
yes,
as
they
they
do,
should.
and as they should. And mine are grown as
Mm.
well, which is
Yeah.
also very lovely. I have to say, I
Yes.
really appreciate grown children. So you are a plotter. I am not. I wish I was a plotter. I'm not a plotter. I don't. I know usually the setup of the story. I always know the setup of the story, and usually
Mm.
sort of approximately how, it will end. And then I'm just blind. And have you always been a plotter? I feel like I wonder if it's just something that some people feel like their process changes, but for a lot of us, it seems like it basically stays more or less the same.
I don't know if it's being a reporter that made me a plotter, but I have always been a plotter.
Mhm.
And now I'm even more of a plotter. The romantic suspense, I didn't have to plot as much, but when you're writing a thriller, for me, it helps to know kind of where the red herrings are going to fall and where you want the twists to come. And that being said, if your editor tells you to change the ending, you change the ending. So,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
in a thriller, when you change the ending, you change the whole book.
Yes.
So,
Right. You're like, dang it. So I have a question. So this is book 3 of this series,
mhm.
and so are, right now, for the moment, we're done with Mari.
We're done with Mari unless, Entangled and the film rights agent sells it to Hulu or Amazon or, one of the streamers like Netflix. I'll continue writing Mari forever if that happens, right?
Yeah, she's a
But
lovely character. I mean, I
thank
can,
you. She's fun. It's been fun to just to see the growth between her and Tony. And I had a really good time throwing in a triangle because up
yes,
until this
sexy
point,
Matt.
Entangled didn't really want me to put romance in it, even though they're
Hmm.
a romance, publishing house, which I think is fun. But they said no kissing in the thriller. But it's book 3 and maybe the last one. So I said, you know what? There's going to be a love triangle. And he's
Yes,
going to be that sexy guy that you really want to, but probably shouldn't, because he's going to break your heart. And I'm going to throw him
yes,
in there and have
yes.
some fun with him. And it was fun.
I'll bet it was fun. I thought it was fun too. I was like, I want to meet sexy Matt.
I know,
Um,
sexy Matt is sexy.
Sexy Matt is sexy. Now, do you ever like play with, I know this is always the pipe dream, of course, but do you play with, like, who would play sexy Matt?
Oh gosh. Yes. You know the guy in Austin Butler, the guy that played Elvis?
Oh,
I just loved him in Elvis, and I
mhm.
think he would be a good sexy Matt.
He would be a
Um,
very good sexy Matt. I would
and
agree with
Ana
that.
de Armas, I think would be a good, she's a
Yeah,
Cuban American actress, and I think she'd be a good Mari.
she'd be amazing.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about Tony Garcia. I really love Mark Consuelos, but I just think he's a sexy guy too. But I could see
He's
him being the more the serious detective type.
Or even like one of the bosses, right? El Jefe or
Right.
somebody a little
Yes,
bit
El
more
Jefe.
like,
Yes, yes,
yes.
yes.
So
So,
that's so fun. Anyway, I always love to do that. I don't know if
right.
am I the only one who's just imagines. Although actually, weirdly, I prefer to do it for other people's books and not for my own because
Oh,
I
yeah.
never kind of. It's almost like you know your characters too well that in my mind they're already established and they don't match anybody else. So
And
that's so
so
fun. So
Orlando Jones, when I was
yes.
writing him, he's the character sidekick. So I went to high school with the actor Orlando Jones, who's
Oh,
yes. So we were in debate together in high school, and he's, been a pretty successful actor in Hollywood. And so I just had his face in my head the whole time I was writing that character. He's a comedian,
right.
and so the character is funny.
Yeah.
You want your donkey to your Shrek. You need a sidekick that's
Right.
humorous, right?
Right.
And so I always pictured Orlando kind of as the photographer, and that's why I even named him Orlando. So
I
who
love it.
knows?
Well, if he ends up being in the show, you'll have to tell him that you
Yeah,
compared him to Donkey.
I know, right? He probably won't like that. But Donkey was
I'm
one of the
just
best characters ever. I
Whoa,
love
no,
Donkey.
no question. Donkey was amazing, but it is a visual, right? Okay,
Yes.
so tell us, like, so now that this series is complete and super excited. Are you what? How do you start to sort of like create a new world? Because of course, when you do a series, we all know you get to sort of create a world and then you grow it and you evolve it, but it's still the same world. So now that you're sort of thinking about the cyclone books, not cyclone, the
Right.
tornado,
Well,
what are they?
hurricane is a cyclone. Yeah,
Hurricane.
it's the
Oh
same
yeah.
thing.
What?
So I have two
Tell
projects
us.
I'm working on right now, and they're both going to be series. And one started, I've been kind of stewing on it for a while. It's based on a local group. For me, it's kind of easy because my day job lays out all of these fabulous stories. So I just pick and
Yes.
choose from them. So the hurricane, I don't know if I call it fabulous, but it's definitely a
Oh
story I want
right,
to write.
right, right, right.
But there's also a group locally here in Tampa that they're former military, and they formed a group where they go rescue Americans when the government can't. They kind of operate in that gray zone, and
Wow.
they don't have to answer to anybody except the people they're going to save. Totally donation funded. And so I was approached by an author who writes for another publisher, and they loved that idea, and so I'm kind of fleshing that out now too.
I love
And I
that.
kind of would like to diversify. Like, there's nothing, like you said, there's nothing wrong with writing a military action thriller with one publisher and then going
Mm-mm.
the Michael Crichton type action adventure thriller with another. So those are kind of the two projects I'm working on, and the worlds I'm in, the fleshing out plotting part of it all before I've actually sit down to start writing the chapters. So that's kind of where I am.
Is that fun? I mean, I feel like sometimes I feel a little anxious before I'm working on a book, but it sounds like this is also your wheelhouse. It's so like what you do, and you
I
must be.
know
I
these
mean, really good
characters.
at
I
it.
know the people, like in Hurricane. Okay, so there's your heroes and your villains. And in
Mhm.
real life, we had this guy, and I'm telling you about this because my viewers on TV really reacted to this. So on the way, a lot of people evacuated, and on the way out of town, this guy tied his dog to a fence and left. And when he was found, the dog was like chest high in water. He was about to drown. So our viewers were so upset with this person, and they finally
Yeah,
found out who he was. And his punishment is that his name was all over the news, and everybody
right.
knows that he tied a dog to a fence and left. So I get my characters based like that. Like, I'm going to have someone, someone
Hmm.
who's doing that. And then my mother-in-law lost her house, and while I was working, because I always have to work the storms, my husband sent me a picture of his mom on a chair in the kitchen, like this, with her head in her hand, and the water, like, you could see the water rising. And you just knew by how high it was already in her kitchen that she was going to lose everything. And she's just sitting there. She's an 88-year-old woman, and everything she's had for the past 50 years is in that house. She raised all her kids in that house, all five
Yeah,
boys. And it was devastating, that one picture. So there's going to be, a character, and it won't be her, but it'll
right,
be the elderly woman that the children come to get her, and she refuses to leave her home. I'm not in a flood zone. It'll never flood here. 50 years I've never flooded. I don't even lose electricity, right? All in all of that. And then it floods and the lights go out, and she's in this flooding home alone.
right,
So this is
right.
how I get my characters. They're really truly based on like real life, but I change them enough so that, no one gets mad at me for stealing their identity.
Right. And of course, that's what we really want to read about, right? We really want, I mean,
Mhm.
it's why we're also fixated on what's been going on in Los Angeles with the fires.
Right.
Because it just seems incomprehensible. And it is. I mean, for those of us not living anywhere near there and just seeing it on TV, it's.
Can you imagine?
No.
First of all, to be in your house and then to see the fire coming up over your back porch. Do you even have time to escape? And then when you're leaving that you may have if the fire hits your house, you've got nothing left.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, it is. And these things are happening more and more often, which, really just makes it all the more terrifying, right? That we need to be paying attention to what's going on with the earth. So
right.
I love that you're doing that. And I love this big group. It does sound like, I mean, it must be you sort of an embarrassment of riches. You have so many stories that are so, full. I mean, so full and exciting and also, and also terrible and emotional and
right.
all the elements that to make into a book.
But the theme for both of those, I think, is resilience, right?
Yeah.
It's survival, how we help each other as a community to survive and how we do come back stronger than ever. So that's definitely the theme. And I guess my TV job has given me really a front seat to, the world. And it's really nice,
Yeah.
And if I do ever get to write this one series, I hope to donate some of the money to the efforts of this group, right?
Exactly.
So I can't stroke a check for $100,000, but maybe I can, help them in another way.
I mean, that's right. That's all we can do is do what we can do. And I love that. And if you educate the public through your book about the group, then other people can donate, right? I mean, that's another, you can always put that in the back of the book, which, that's how exactly. If we're unaware, we don't help. We can't help.
Exactly.
Right? And if we are aware, then we learn so much more. So exciting. Well, I have to say, it was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes.
Thank you for spending the time. I'm going to show this gorgeous cover. If you are listening to us and not watching, you'll have to go and check out Linda's covers. All the captive girls, captivating. It is captivating. All the captive girls. So, and there is some scenes about something happening underground, which I'm not going to tell you about because you have to go read them. But the visuals of that were really, really terrifying.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yes,
I mean,
there are tunnels under Ybor City. I'm just going to leave it at that. And you can use your imagination to what they were used for.
Yeah, that was right. Exactly. That was amazing. So thank you so much, Linda. I'm super excited to have had you on the show, and tell everybody where to find you online so they can follow whatever you're up to.
Bond, Linda Bond. So usually it's author Linda Bond or author Linda Hurtado Bond. But just look up Linda Bond and you'll find me.
That's right. Well, thank you again, everyone. This was Killer Women with Linda Hurtado Bond, and we will see you next time. Bye.